Again for the 10th win, this time I have Stella and Archon, and of course my opponent has Stella as well, but with these two cards it's gonna be easy for me to win this matchup. So as always, since my opponent didn't attack, I am gonna use my Stella to rush. And I'm gonna use my super over here. My opponent uses their Stella super as well, but they're not doing a great job of staying away from my Stella, and I managed to use my super to get my opponent's Stella. But having said that, my opponent uses their Mechalodon super to get my Stella, and I gotta switch to the second best card in the game, Archon. You can see with each shot I deal 76 damage with Archon to the bunker. And I'm gonna use my super over here to stop my opponent's Stella because of the tip that I gave you last game. And again, let's put more emphasis on it. You need to get your opponent's Stella before doing anything else, because if they switch to Stella, it's gonna get really difficult to defend against Stella. So over here I'm gonna use my Stella's special ability to fly to my opponent's bunker and deal more damage. Stella's main weapon deals plus 70 damage with each shot, and her super deals 52 damage per each yellow star. I'm easily gonna get rid of my opponent's Cleo, and I'm gonna use my main weapon to finish off the game and collect our 10th win on the second try. Going for our 11th win, this time I have Cypher, Sombrero, BB and Jab, and my opponent has Miss Bunny, Vandal, Scrapper and Bubbler as our best cards. So I'm gonna start the game playing as Jab. As I said earlier, do not be afraid to use your defensive cards, that is both defense and camp cards, to rush your opponent's bunkers. Especially having Sombrero on my side, I'm gonna take advantage of his super and Jab's high DPS to get a couple of frags and pop some specters, which are really difficult to deal with. Having already gotten my opponent's first bunker, this time I'm gonna try to get some frags instead of going for my opponent's next bunker, and the reason is my opponent's Scrapper, and this is the next small tip that I can give you. Do not ignore your opponent's Scrapper in frenzy mode. She can repair a lot of the HP of the bunkers in a relatively short time. And again, that's why I went after my opponent's defense cards instead of going for the second bunker. I'm gonna get the second bunker easily with my Jab. Over here, things are about to get a little bit closer than I want to see. My opponent's Scrapper got my Cypher, and my opponent has gotten both of my bunkers as well. And over here, I hear that my opponent's Scrapper is starting to repair their bunker. This means if I ignore my opponent's Vandal and go for a base rush, since they have Scrapper, I might not be able to finish off the bunker before my opponent. And this is why I switched to my Sombrero to get my opponent's Vandal. And this is the next tip. Know when to trade bunkers and when not to. This example was a good example of when not to trade bunkers or towers with your opponent, because again, I wasn't sure whether my Jab is gonna be able to finish off the tower before the Scrapper repairs it again and my opponent gets my tower with their Vandal. Going for the 12th win, where we unlock Stella. This time I have Stella, Queen Unicorn, BB, and my opponent has Smoker, Cleo and Snow. And of course this is not gonna be a tough match for me, because again I have Stella and my opponent doesn't have her. They also don't have great counters to Stella, so this should be another easy win for me. So over here I see my opponent is rushing from the other side, but since their cards aren't great, I'm gonna ignore their attack and try to get this Cleo over here and then go after the bunker with the help of my BB and Queen Boom. And as you see over here, my opponent's Eagle Eye is trying to simp that Cleo, but it's not successful because Cleo gets taken out anyway. And I'm gonna easily get the second bunker and fly to the main tower, where you can again see why Stella is overpowered and she needs not just a small or minor nerf, but a big hefty nerf to her stats. If you ask me, I'm gonna ask for a nerf to 3 things. I want to see less homing on both her regular attack and super, a longer interval between the stars that she shoots during her super, and possibly a nerf to her speed so she's as fast as Duncan, Runnin and Rip and Flip. And at 12 wins, we unlock Stella and get our 16 cards. For our 13th win, we have Ollie and Medusa, and our opponent has the newly buffed Lord VR, Lollipop, and Cybergirl. So this is gonna be a close matchup, but if they ask me, I would have probably picked my opponent's cards, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Either way, I'm gonna start the game maining Ollie, which deals a lot of damage with 1200 fire rates. So over here, my Quetzal comes from the wing to help my Ollie get that bunker, and my opponent is playing as their Inferno, which already shows that they are not the best player and they're not familiar with all cards in Frag at least. So over here I switch to my Medusa, and the reason is the next tip that I'm gonna share with you. Do not completely ignore your opponent's attacks. I've seen a lot of new players do this both in special challenges and generally in normal matches as well. But talking about new card challenges specifically, although you gotta keep your opponents under pressure, this does not mean completely ignoring your opponent's attacks. The thing is, you might win the match by ignoring your opponent's attack, but this is not guaranteed. And over here, if you want to get to 20 wins, you gotta make sure that you win as many games as you can before you lose 3 times. And this can only be achieved by not leaving it up to luck. Right over here, I know that it's gonna get a little bit difficult for me to get to my opponent's bunker, so I'm gonna use my ollie to pop that lollipop and try to deal some more damage to my opponent's cards so they are easier to frag out by my card's AI when those cards get to my half. I'm gonna go up the stairs, try to get rid of my opponent's Cybergirl because she's being a little bit annoying over here, but my opponent also have a TV station up, so I'm gonna go after it and get rid of it as soon as I can and deal more damage to their bunker, dodging their TV to secure our 13th win. Hopping into the 14th win, here I have Stella, Hunter and DJ Equalizer, and my opponent has Marco Pollo, FreezeBee and Cybergirl as their best cards. So Marco Pollo is another good counter to Stella, and if my opponent knows what they're doing, they should be maining their Marco Pollo to use his spaghetti to get my Stella before I can completely wreck their bunker. But they are making a mistake and they are playing as somebody else, I'm not sure who. And over here I get that Cybergirl, use my super to finish off FreezeBee, and use my last 1 or 2 yellow stars to deal some more damage to the bunker. And as you can see over here, I get the bunker, I get Vlad on my way to the second bunker, and this should be another easy win, knowing I have Stella and my opponent doesn't. So just like that, by dodging a couple of shots, I get my Stella to my opponent's main tower. I'm gonna use my super as well, and that is a glitch that the dev team should take care of as we collect our 14th win and probably the easiest and fastest match in this video. This is for the 15th win over here, and this time I have Duncan, Hunter and Hannibal, and my opponent has Stella, Soldatron and Mr. Doe. Knowing for sure that my opponent is gonna play as their Stella, I am gonna use my Duncan, possibly one of the best counters to Stella. Here I get rid of Mecha Knight and my opponent gets my Hunter, so over here I have to use my Duncan super perfectly to stun my opponent's Stella before they can use their super. And that's exactly what happens over here as they die to my Duncan's burn off effect. So I pick up a health pack over there, deal some damage to my opponent's bunker, tell my Hannibal to go to the other bunker. You should remember how I said you should split your damage and go after both bunkers if you can, basically double lane push. And my Hannibal along with my Wolfson get the second bunker, and over here I have to pick up some health packs and go back to the first bunker where I was dealing damage. But on our way there, I'm gonna get Mecha Knight again and Mr. Doe. And again I see my opponent coming with their Stella. I'm gonna nail my super again, but this time my opponent is lucky enough to use their super and get away from my Duncan before I can deal the last blow to the Stella. And I switch to my Hunter to get the second bunker and make it a go at the main tower. Here I switch to Wolfson for the first time in this run. I get Mecha Knight, which is an easy target for my Wolfson. I see that my opponent is still controlling Stella and they're doing the right thing doing that. After this, I switch to Hunter for a second, but I'm gonna have to switch to Duncan again because again, Duncan is a great counter to Stella, and I'm gonna give you the next tip right after this interaction over here. As you just saw, my opponent's Mr. Doe took most of the HP off my left bunker, but I was able to salvage my bunker using the high DPS on my Duncan. As I push back and go for the final blow with my Duncan, this is the tip that I wanted to give you. Keep your counters to your opponent's Stella in hand. This means if you have Duncan, Ronin and whatever card that is your best counter to Stella, keep them alive and try to main them to catch your opponent's Stella off guard. That game would have been completely different if I had not been maining my Duncan as I did. So let's collect our reward at 15 wins and let's go for our 16th win. This time, Fortune is showing us the good side, and this time I am getting Stella, Archon and Hakurio, just like how our opponent did in our only loss so far. But at least this time my opponent also has Archon, Queen Unicorn and Smoker, which are some of the best cards in the game in general, excluding Smoker, but also Smoker is a great card, is a great bunker breaker in Frenzy mode. So I'm gonna start the game with my Stella once again. I am gonna try to stop my opponent's push. I don't know why my opponent is not using their Archon. he or she is just rushing with their Queen Unicorn over here, and I'm gonna use my super to get that Queen Unicorn and deal some more damage to this smoker before I shoot him once more to finish him off. I'm gonna pick up the health pack, which is not really necessary, and my opponent is controlling Captain Polar, which is probably the worst card, the last card they should be controlling right now. And thanks to that avalanche super, my Hakuria, who's stuck inside the icicles, is gonna be able to get the bunker, and I'm gonna use my super to go after my opponent's best card, that is Archon. So I'm gonna go after the bunker over here. Again, you're just gonna need 6 if not 5 shots to completely get a bunker with Stella, and again it's just gonna be a matter of time before I finish up this match with another win. By the way, the second bunker that we just took out with only 5 Stella shots took only 5 seconds. That is only 5 seconds that is required to take down a completely healthy bunker. And again, this should show how broken and strong Stella is at the moment. Things are starting to heat up as we go for our 17th win, where we only have Lollipop and Marco Pollo, and our opponent has Stella, Duality, and Gigagoo, who has a very good AI, especially in random deck challenges. So this is the next tip that I'm gonna give you. Watch what your opponent is doing. Over here, I see that my opponent is going for my right tower. So unfortunately, I told my troops to defend the left bunker, but I'm gonna try to use my Marco Pollo Spaghetti Ball to defend against their Stella. I have no idea how the super missed, but luckily for me, my opponent is not playing their Stella, and I can finish her off and go after Valkyria right after. My opponent is playing as their Duality, which is not terrible, but again, they should have been playing as Stella, the best card in the game right now. So my opponent is trying to charge up their Duality, and I gotta switch to my Virus to get their Duality before she's completely charged up. Over here, I finally get the Duality, and I know that my opponent Stella has already respawned and is on her way to my bunker. So I'm gonna switch to Marco Pollo, again one of the best, and I'm gonna try to use my super on her again, and again I missed that. I have no idea how I missed my Marco Pollo super, which I shouldn't be this terrible at, but my opponent gets my first bunker and is using their Stella to get the second, and I can finally, the third time's the charm, can get that Stella with my Spaghetti Ball. At this point I know I have nothing to lose. I'm gonna switch to my Lollipop and try to deal as much damage to my opponent's bunkers as I can. I go for the first bunker, and realizing that they have a lot of troops on that bunker, I'm gonna switch to the other one and wait for my troops, and luckily my troops are coming to meet me there as well. Also, my opponent who's playing as Duality gets my second bunker, but my Marco Pollo's AI takes care of Duality as well. I'm gonna pick up a health pack, get this long shot on my way, and Desperado's health there as well. My opponent is again making a mistake playing as Gigagoo. I have no idea why. As my ape suit gets the bunker, I'm gonna use my Lollipop super again, but being a little bit nervous in this match, I failed to do it correctly. But finally, I get to the top of the bunker, to the top of the main tower, where I deal damage. And this is where my opponent made a mistake and did not use their Stella in time to go after my main tower way before I could finish theirs. And take note of how I move towards my opponent's bunker to deal damage to the tower and not long shot. For our 18th win, this time I have Stella, and my opponent has Stella, Medusa and Cybergirl, and possibly Amelie as the best cards in this matchup. I know for a fact that my opponent has better cards if we compare the cards one-on-one, and this is why it is important and essential for me to keep my opponent under pressure, and this is what I'm doing over here. I got my opponent's Medusa, and I was trying to get my opponent's Stella as well. I wasn't really successful in that, but I'm trying to keep my opponent on my tail and going from one bunker to the other, as I've already said, and going to pick up a health pack, because the next step is try to keep your cards alive and pick up health packs as much as you can without losing the game. Because as you know, with each frag, a certain amount of points, somewhere around 60 points, is reduced off of a team's total score, which is shown at the top of the screen. So as you just saw, I used my super to get my opponent Stella and Cybergirl at the same time, and luckily for me, they both get fragged out at the same time, and I can easily go after my opponent's bunker, and I just remembered that I still have to get the second bunker. So over here, I tell my cards to go after the main tower, because I know using my Stella super, I'm gonna be able to get the second bunker on my own. And as you see, with her super, I get the Cybergirl as well, and just in time, I landed at the top of my opponent's bunker, and I'm gonna use my regular attack, and my opponent is struggling to get my Stella over here. And let's see at the end, Mr. Tiger does something right for once and uses his super will to help me finish off my opponent's Stella as I use my super to finish off the game. At 18-1, we go for the 19th win, and this time our best cards are Cyber Girl and General Mick, and our opponent has Sombrero and Snow. So this is a good example of how random draft matches should be without overpowered cards involved, where skill only has a limited say in the outcome of the match. So starting the match with my Cyber Girl, I help out my rollout to finish up that Snow. Gonna pick up the main health pack to completely heal myself and go after my opponent's bunker over here. And as you see, Cyber Girl deals a decent amount of damage to the bunkers. I think it takes her less than 10 seconds to completely destroy a bunker. As you might have noticed, I kept a healthy distance from my opponent's Desperados because I didn't want to get stuck in his lasso. So over here I get a little bit greedy and want to get my opponent's Snow and Desperados at the same time. And I see that Smoker coming after me, and I know it's time to leave and go after my opponent's second bunker while they're busy practicing sniping with their Captain Polar, probably for their Call of Duty session, which they're gonna play right after this match. With Cyber Girl, it's not gonna take me much time. General Mick comes to help me out and finish off the bunker, and as I saw that, I started moving up for the main tower. I got lassoed by my opponent's Desperados, but since I was falling down, he didn't really get me over there. And I am just gonna go for my opponent's main tower for the final blow in the final seconds of this match, securing our 19th win. By the way, Cyber Girl is an underrated card in my opinion. Of course, she's not meta, mainly because of her low HP and how her super is not helpful a ton. Going into the next and possibly the last match of this video, I have Stella, Blot and Medusa, and my opponent has Stella, Run-In and Rip and Fin. So I would say my opponent probably has the matchup since they also have Jab, which is a good counter to Stella more or less, and in general is a great card, especially in bunker rushing in frenzy mode. But as you see over here, my opponent starts the game out with a little bit of lag, and I should say even more than just a little bit, a lot of lag. But what I do over here is completely ignore them as I speed up the match. I am using my Stella to go from bunker to bunker because that's what you want to do against opponents who are lagging. I'm not gonna stay in one place. I keep on moving from left to right, from right to left, up and down, and so on. Of course, this goes on for some time until they reconnect. I had to switch to my Medusa because I wasn't dealing any damage, and somehow I was taking damage from my opponent. Blot gets the main tower suddenly, and whee! Such a crazy match, such a crazy Stella, such a laggy opponent. I have no idea what's going on in this match. The Stella is bugged over there and my opponent is lagging, and there's no way I'm not gonna switch to my Stella to finish up this game because it's been a nice crazy ending to a very triggering crazy challenge which we might have only seen back when Run-In or Ronin was introduced to the game. And over here I was saving my super for when my opponent is gonna come after me. Unfortunately they're gonna be able to frag me out, but I'm gonna switch to my Blot, get a frag over there, and I see my opponent's AI driven Run-In, so I'm gonna use my super to root him to the ground and keep him in place for my other cards to finish him off. And by this time I know my Stella is respawned, and I am gonna get my opponent's Stella over here, and I am gonna use my Stella super over here to get that Run-In. My opponent pushes me back with the Rip and Fin, but it's not gonna be a problem. I survived. And over here I'm manually shooting to get that jab due to the homing effect and go up the stairs and finish off this challenge 20-1 on the first try on this account. That's it for this video, guys. I hope those of you who wanted me to play from 0 to 20 wins without using diamonds to skip are satisfied now. Thank you for watching, stay safe and take care everyone, until the next